I just helped a runner in her 50s go from constant hip pain, even after surgery, to train for the Boston Marathon completely pain free. And here's the crazy part: she didn't run more. She actually ran less. Dr. Ray Peralta, physical therapist and run coach. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how we did it and show you how you can train for your next marathon pain free without destroying your body in the process. So the problem, my client here, she came to me, she was frustrated. Every time she tried to train seriously, her hip pain would flare up, nagging pain that was always constantly there. She already tried physical therapy, tried all the standard exercises, even had a glute tendon repair surgery. She even had that glute tendon repair because she's like, oh, if I get surgery, that'll work, right? And yet, like a year later, she was still couldn't string together consistent weeks of running. Every time she tried to ramp up the mileage, right, go beyond 10K, the pain would like start spiking up, and she would have to like take a week off or two. And that's a real problem most runners face. It's not motivation, right? Especially, it's that their body keeps breaking down before they can even build momentum. They came in, start doing a marathon training block because they came and tolerate the mileage, right? They came and go on a long run without their body breaking down because they've already had the history of injury, weakened tissue around. Even if they had surgery, sometimes surgery is not always the best option, right? You could have like incomplete recovery after surgery. If you want a copy of how I structure marathon training to help runners, learn how to run pain-free, I'm sharing it inside my free school community for runners. Click the link in the description to join. So some of the steps we found, I actually did an assessment with her because I specialize in her approach to take a look at the biomechanics, so essentially the movements, and really understand the symptom behavior, the movements, what's actually causing the pain, try to get to the root cause. And here's what a lot of people miss, including doctors and other physical therapists, that her hip pain wasn't actually coming from her hip. It was actually coming from her lower back. See, and this happens all the time. About 71% of hip pain is actually coming from the back. And I can't say whether or not her glute tendon had anything to do with it, but the fact that she had a glute tendon surgery, right, and was still in pain even a year later, despite doing all the PT, it leads me to believe that even her surgeon missed that her back was causing a lot of her hip pain. And unfortunately, many people are just chasing symptoms instead of actually fixing the source, right? So this is where people are like, oh, I got some relief, but then this pain is still there. Is because we haven't truly addressed the underlying source that was causing the pain in the first place. And sometimes it's training errors, whether it's like, okay, maybe you're just doing a program that's just too aggressive for you, whether too much mileage, too many days of the week of running. And we'll talk about that as well in a bit. But you can see in the diagram, most people will oftentimes will feel pain that they feel like in the buttock or in the top of the hip, and not realize that, hey, if it's radiating, that if it wraps around into the back, it's actually the back that's causing the hip pain. It's not necessarily hip pain in isolation. This is one of the telltale signs. But not everyone has this. The other thing is how the symptoms behave, and that's why getting a proper assessment, a mechanical assessment, a movement assessment, especially someone who understands runners, can really help you get past this pain or the injury. And that's what I do with my runners here, to really get down, hey, what's uncovering, what's being missed, and how can we address that so you can enjoy running pain-free. And then we fix those weak links. So instead of random exercise, we focus on what she actually needed. For her, it was trunk mobility. That was her biggest gap, because part of the issues that her pain was coming from was having a stiff back. So we improved her lumbar mobility. We also made sure her hip was strong and further increase her hip strength, her stability, and also make sure her posture, because her lifestyle factors, sedentary, sitting behind a desk all day, that could be contribute to the hip pain as well. So not just do some clamshells and bridges, but specific work, right? Single leg bridges, trunk mobility, right? Also strengthening your core posture. That's where most runners get stuck. Sometimes they're doing the exercises, but they're not doing the right exercise. Sometimes you're actually doing the wrong exercises. And yes, it does matter which exercise you do, because some exercise, either it don't do anything for you at all. Yeah, sure, you might get generally stronger, but then oftentimes don't address the exact weak link, or in some other cases, the exercise actually makes you worse. You're like, what the heck? I'm now more pain or more stiffness. So it's very important to be mindful of what effect the exercise is having. Like in my client's case, she actually needed some lumbar mobility exercise similar to like this one. Like this is a lumbar extension or trunk extension. And she has some other combination of exercise, but here's like a sample exercise you could see as well. Again, I do want to put a caveat. Just because I share an exercise here doesn't mean it's going to be the solution for you. That's why getting a proper assessment is important. Otherwise, it's a disservice to be like, oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, it didn't work. This method didn't work for me. It's because you need a proper assessment, right? The assessment is key. Without the assessment, you're guessing. But anyhow, I know some of you will still want to see some of the sample exercises. So there's one of the sample exercises. Now we rebuilt her running smart. So this is where most people mess up. They think I just need to run more, right? Or hey, I'm training for a marathon. I'm training for Boston. I have to run like every day of the week. You don't have to do that, especially if you're injury prone. We use a 3 run per week structure: one easy run, one quality run, whether it's a tempo run, hill workout, speed workout, etc., and then one long run, right? Gradual progression. And this 3 week run week framework works. One, it's especially helpful if you're injury prone to allow you to continue to run and help you avoid potential overuse injuries, because a lot of times running injuries also just due to overuse. You're just doing way too much running that your body can't recover from. And that's it. Everything else is supported with strength training 2 times a week, daily mobility, at least 10 minutes of daily mobility, smart recovery, and then, yes, there's some cross training as well to do cardio. However, for me, the cross training isn't the most important part, actually. I'd rather, if someone was limited on time, actually do the running and the strength training. Yes, cross training can have some cardio boosting benefits, but that's and the reason I bring this up, because some people see my content, my videos, and they get confused. Like, oh, I did the 3 runs plus 2 days of cross training. It's similar to some other guys' program. That's not what my program is about, folks. It's really the strength training, the targeted mobility and strength work, especially for your weak links. I do want to put a caveat here. It's not just 3 runs and that's it, or 3 runs plus 2 days of cross training and that's it. No, it's actually how it's program and structured, the heavy strength training, the explosive training, and it has its time and place with the right progressions, depending where you are, especially if you're injured or dealing with pain. But essentially, this is the effective dose for running, right? The minimum, because you don't have to do, more miles. There's like a low mileage approach or low volume of running and still get maximum longevity. As you can see, a lot of running injuries, again, just too much load, too much mileage, too much speed work or quality runs throughout the week, not enough rest, not enough recovery, nutrition, the strength, your tissue tolerance isn't strong enough to handle the demands of running. So then we focused on tissue readiness, right? So once she was out of pain or minimal pain, we stopped just chasing general fitness. We started building up her tissue capacity, because if your body can't handle the load that demands of running, which could be 2 to 3 times your body weight every time your foot hits the ground. So it's equivalent to about, let's say you're a 100-pound runner, 200 to 300 pounds of force going through your leg every time your foot hits the ground. So it doesn't matter how generally aerobically, how much cardio you have, then you'll still break down. You're not going to be as durable. So this is where my programming is very important, is the strength training, the heavy lifting, right? Things like heavy squats, deadlifts, but also doing single leg heavy Bulgarian split squats, lunges. And again, there's so many different exercises, and there's some targeted weak link work as well, working on, some people also call this accessory training, working on the accessories or the weak links to really make sure that you're durable and you don't break down in the future, right? It's a combination. It's how you program, because many runners will, I'll just read a book or I'll see a guide or something, but they oftentimes either do too little strength work, either they'll skip it at all, or they'll do very just lightweight high reps, and that's not enough either. You also need to do some heavy lifting and explosive lifting as well, in addition to targeting the weak links. So the results, you went from constant hip pain, inconsistent training, to fewer flare-ups, to running pain-free, training consistently, and building towards Boston with confidence. Again, she didn't run more. She ran smarter and did the targeted, the rehab or the prehab work for her painful hip that was actually coming from her back. She was able to prevent recurrence of the hip pain by keeping up with the prevention routine that I gave her, and now she was feeling confident. And right now I have a few spots open to work with me one-to-one to help you train for your next race, whether it's for a marathon or some other race. I also work with people training for ultras, etc., and actually enjoy the process again. If you're curious, there's a link in the description to apply. In conclusion, here's why I want you to take away. It's not about running more. It's about running smarter. And your pain isn't always what you think it is, right? So it's important to get an assessment. Sometimes it's coming from somewhere else. And strength and mobility aren't optional. They're essential. And consistency beats intensity every single time. If you're stuck in that cycle of train, pain, stop, and repeat, it's time to change your approach. If this helped you, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.